Do you find that most people struggle identifying which of those buckets is the appropriate one for them? Do you get the sense that people are okay?
No, I don't. I think that people have a really good indicator. They might have a hard time saying it out loud.
Yeah. Because
they have a hard time saying, like, I just want to look really good.
Mm-hmm.
Because they think that's vain. But internally, no, people know.
Mm.
So for me, I want to look good, with my shirt off, and I want to be able to perform at the gym, and I want to be healthy when I'm older.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things matter a ton to me, which is why I balance those buckets across the board really, really finely.
We are here because we know the outcomes in our lives are within our control. That taking absolute ownership of how we eat, sleep, train, think, and connect with each other is how we'll optimize our health and happiness. That chasing excellence is how we grab hold of what is possible. Our mission is to live on the run, always chasing, never stopping. Hello and welcome back to Chasing Excellence. How are you, Ben?
Good, Patrick. Thanks, buddy.
Today we are going to, I don't know if this is a part 2 or a revisit or I don't know what quite it is, but in early 2017, we did an episode called Simplifying Nutrition. And I actually just went back and watched it on YouTube. It has 100,000 views on YouTube, which actually surprised the heck out of me. So clearly it was a topic, a conversation that people were interested in, were curious about. And so we're going to revisit that idea. We're going to revisit the idea of simplifying nutrition. And so I don't actually know too much about what this part 2 is going to be. You kind of teed me up with the idea, and then you wouldn't tell me more.
We're going to make it more simplified.
We're going to
simplify it.
And so my first question is like, where? Actually, I think the first thing I wanted to do is just a really quick recap of what that first episode was, and we may revisit some of it. We may kind of repeat ourselves a little bit because they're important. But in that first episode, we talked a lot about quantity and quality. We talked a lot about, I think we did a little bit on like paleo and zone and some of the bigger trends that we saw. We did a little bit on blood work and the usefulness of blood work. And so given all that, like where are we going to dive into this kind of part 2, this revisiting of simplifying nutrition? Where does it make sense to start?
Well, I think it makes sense to start probably the same place we started then, because what we're trying to do is clarify all the noise that's out there.
Yeah.
If you listen to the news, if you check out nutrition on the internet, if you go to 3 different experts, you can get 3 different opinions. Nutrition is something that, I love. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm a performance coach. I believe that nutrition is as important as anything else I do in terms of personally what I do in terms of my health. It's one of the huge factors that we talk about in terms of the 5 factors of health, wellness, longevity. And it's equally as important for me, for my elite athletes in performance. And I think that's one of the things that, I've been espousing for a long time, and I continue to espouse. I know there's a lot of people that say, if you are an elite athlete, it doesn't matter as much. You can outwork it. You just need to get in the calories. I vehemently disagree with that. I think it matters a ton, because what I believe is, I'm going off on a tangent here a little bit. We'll get back to the simplified part, but I need the soapbox. Everything from, the macronutrient content but people are like, it doesn't really matter the quality as much. Like I totally think the quality matters a ton, especially for the elite athletes, because if you have any sort of inflammation, which is caused by eating poor food choices, the ones that don't agree with you, and that's going to hinder your performance. And people that are exercising for a living at the margins that are so tiny, where the 0.001% actually makes different places on the leaderboard, to say that like your nutrition doesn't matter as much because you're just going to burn all the calories off anyway, I think is such a cop-out answer. And I've seen it with my athletes when I work with them. It's not about getting leaner, that's part of it, but you can get leaner without the good food. When you get leaner and it's the good food and it's the quality, that's when it makes the biggest impact. So that's the soapbox. Now we can kind of like pull back a little bit and go into what is the difference between then and now. I hope not too much, actually. I hope it's the same message. I haven't heard that podcast we did since 2017. So I haven't heard it in 3.5 years. But if there's a lot of carryover, I think that's great. I'm going to give it through the lens of today. And I think I've learned a fair amount. I know I've experienced a lot over the last 3 years. I think 3 years ago, I'd had limited experience into things like intermittent fasting and ketosis and gut microbiome and all that stuff. Now, as we get into all those rabbit holes, all that does is solidify the simplicity aspect of this.
Yep.
And what we have is just a few big, major things that we need to know about nutrition, and you don't need to geek out. It's about the big things. And if we can get that through this conversation, to me, that's a huge win.
Got it. Okay. So where, the idea of those big fundamental things, what's the first fundamental thing, the first big thing that you want to dive into that you feel like folks need to hear?
So there's the ever long debate about like, do calories in, calories out matter? Or is it about your food choices? Like that's the biggest one is like, do calories matter? Yeah. Some people say like, yes, and it's only about calories. Other people say, no, they don't matter as long as you eat good food. The first thing we have to do is understand that both sides of those arguments are correct, and the combination of them together is correct. And the exclusion of them apart is correct. Every single different variation and iteration of those sentences, no, it's about calories in, calories out. That's right. It's also wrong. No, it's just about food choices and food quality. That's right. Well, it's also wrong. It depends on what your goals are. And once I know what your goals are, then we can have that conversation. Now, it always matters across the board. So we're kind of figuring out like what is 1A and what is 1B, and what we're trying to order these things in terms of priorities. If you come to me, Patrick, and say, I want to lose 50 pounds. Now, if people aren't watching this, Patrick can't lose 50 pounds. If he does, he's going to start to disappear through the cracks in the floor. But let's say you had a client come to you and said, like, I want to lose 50 pounds. Well, then the conversation should start with the calories, because calories determine your body composition. This is simplified nutrition. Yep. Calories equal your body composition, meaning how lean or fat you are. That's the number one determinant. Yes, there are other determinants. Absolutely, there are other determinants. These are all like sliding shades of gray. But the number one bucket that determines how lean or fat you are is how much food you're eating. And that is the old school calories. This is why calories still matter. That's the first thing we have to start with. Now, the next bucket is you come to me and you say, I want to live to 120. I never want to get sick. I want to feel terrific all the time. That bucket is the quality bucket. It is eating real foods. It is avoiding processed foods. It is staying away from sugar and potentially gluten or dairy or other things. That is the bucket that the vegetarians love to talk about. The paleo people love to talk about. That bucket matters a lot. And if you are focused on health, or let's also say you were sick, that's the bucket I would focus on as well. Maybe you have some sort of metabolic thing you need to get better. That's the bucket. So now you understand, like, both those buckets are correct. It has more to do with what your goals are. Then from there's this third bucket, which is, what if you came to me and said, I want to run an ultra marathon, back to 50 miles, 100 miles. You come to me and say, I want to compete for the CrossFit Games. Well, the bucket that matters there, I'm not going to say it's more, but the bucket now we have to start talking about is your macronutrient composition. This is how much protein, carbs, and fat you have in your diet. This bucket determines your performance. So now we have three buckets. You have the quality bucket, which determines your health. You have the quantity bucket, which determines how lean you are. And then you have the macro bucket, how much protein, carbs, and fat you're having, and that determines your performance. Just to simplify nutrition even more, protein, carbs, and fats are proteins. I think most people know this by now. But those are lean meats. Those are animal-based. Carbohydrates are still on the same page. There are different aspects of carbohydrates. Fruits and vegetables are carbs, as is chips, donuts, and the junk food, processed foods, juice, soda, those types of things. And then fats also have kind of good and bads as well. There is good fats that come from avocado, olive oil, ghee, coconut products. And then there's the bad fat, which comes in most processed food and baked goods, but it's also in a lot of salad dressings. It's like soybean oil, vegetable oil, canola oil, those type of things. So that to me is like where we need to start with, is those three buckets. And if you understand those three buckets and what your goals are, now we can have a really targeted conversation. A member came up to me this morning and said, can you just help me out with nutrition? My husband, through quarantine, he hurt his back. He's lost some motivation. He's gained a lot of weight. Now it's hard for him to get back into the gym because he's overweight and he hasn't worked out in 3 months. I think it's nutrition. How do I get him, back in this game? Well, the first thing I want to know there is, first thing I should be kind of internalizing that discussion is, okay, which of these buckets does he fall in? Now, again, it's not all one or the other, because the other cool part about this is, as you dial in your quality, so as you get away from processed crap and baked goods and the kind of the normal Western diet of fast food, chips, pizza, and soda, as you work towards a more quality diet of fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, healthy fats, as you do that, your quantity changes. It's really easy to overeat the quantity aspect when you eat crappy quality. If you eat at McDonald's, you're going to eat in one easy sitting. You could very easily. So actually, here's a little tangent funny story is one of our coaches had his birthday last week, and the other coaches bought him 5 double cheeseburgers from Five Guys. So I was like, guys, this is not a good idea. So in front of them, I looked up the calorie content of each burger.
Yep.
Each burger by themselves was 1,500 calories. Each burger. Yep. Now, for those that don't, perspective is like the normal person in America eats about 1,800 calories a day. To call it 2,000 if you want to. Each burger was almost the daily intake for calories. So it's so easy to overeat when you eat crap. It's so easy. So that's as you dial in one bucket, the other bucket can kind of like get helped out. Yep. Again, if you're going to try to dial in the quantity bucket and not eat as much, and you're going for the crap food, well, you only get to have like 3 bites of that burger and you're going to be starving in 15 minutes. So it almost necessitates the other aspect. This is why usually a diet, quote unquote diet, so like intermittent fasting or keto or paleo or macros or zone, these diets will focus on one aspect, but by default they affect the other. So keto is focusing on the third bucket, which is macros. It's saying don't eat almost zero carbs, have very little protein, and have tons of fat. Well, when you do that, it's really hard to overeat. So your quantity comes down a lot. And if you're not going to overeat, then you can't eat just crap, because there's not really that much crap to go to. Otherwise, you're going to be starving. This is why we would talk about like people like with vegan, they eat really clean food. It affects the quantity aspect, because as they're eating clean, now assuming, I shouldn't say vegan, I should say plant-based. For clarity's sake, when we say vegan, what we're saying there is no animal products. But Ritz crackers and Doritos and a lot of other stuff are not, you can have crap on a vegan diet.
Yep.
I like the word plant-based because it's a little more instructive into actually, this is like people that eat fruits and vegetables, beans, legumes, stuff like that. So the really kind of overarching simplified approach to this is tell me what it is you want to achieve, and then I can have a more pointed discussion about what it is you're looking to do. Because you getting down to 7 or 8% body fat, this might sound weird, but doesn't mean you're healthier. Now, to get down to 7 to 10% body fat, the one you want to lean into the most there, and yes, there's other ones, would be just eat less calories. Now, because you are 13, 14, 15% body fat and you eat really, really clean, but you eat a lot, doesn't necessarily mean that you're that unhealthy. So we need to kind of understand what these buckets mean and that they are not mutually exclusive, but they're not exhaustive either. There's overlap and shades of gray between the whole thing. Now, there's one other aspect I would layer into this as well. So call it a fourth small bucket, and that is food intolerances and deficiencies. So to me, once you kind of get the quality, quantity, and macros dialed in for what you want to achieve. So do you want to lose weight? Do you want to look better on the beach? Do you want to live forever? Do you want to compete at the CrossFit Games? Pick a bucket. And I'll morph those 3 buckets appropriately for you. The next overarching thing I put around that whole thing is this optimization of Patrick. How do we optimize you based off those things? And strangely enough, people just kind of take nutrition at face value, but we're all case studies of one, and what your body likes might not be what my body likes. Case in point, there is a bigger set of the population than most of us realize that are intolerant to strawberries. Doesn't mean they're allergic to them. It just means that they're intolerant to them. It doesn't do in their gut what we should be doing in our gut. It's much like it's kind of like different degrees of people that are lactose intolerant, or people who have nut allergies, or people that don't do well on any sort of food. When you understand what you work well with really specifically, you overlay that on top of tell me what bucket you're chasing, and we can grow the other buckets appropriately. Now we're talking about something. Now we have a good discussion.
Do you find that most people struggle identifying which of those buckets is the appropriate one for them? Do you get the sense that people are okay?
No, I don't. I think that people have a really good indicator. They might have a hard time saying it out loud. Yeah. Because they have a hard time saying, like, I just want to look really good. Because they think that's vain. But internally, no, people know. So for me, I want to look good, with my shirt off, and I want to be able to perform at the gym, and I want to be healthy when I'm older. All of those things matter a ton to me, which is why I balance those buckets across the board really, really finely. If anything, this is being totally open, during the summer months, I lean more into the vain one of looking better. And my calorie count comes down pretty drastically. And I shed about 7 to 10 pounds in the summer. In the winter, that's not as important to me, and I lean more into the health side of things. Now, strangely enough, when I lean out, my performance also goes up. So you can see how all these things are tied together. But kind of like to put those things in perspective for myself and give a real world example. So for myself, and again, this is don't follow me because everyone is different. During the summer months, when leaning out becomes a little bit more important to me, and I'm always kind of equal across the board in terms of what I'm looking for performance. But in terms of that health and leaning out thing, I lean a little bit more into I do a little more of the intermittent fasting approach, where my last meal, because this controls, I'm a guy that when I sit down to eat, I want to eat a ton. So that's actually the second question I ask is what is the – so pulling back again to that member that came up to me about their husband, I said, okay, it sounds like he needs to lose weight. And she's like, yeah, he needs to drop about 15 pounds or whatever. And that would give him a lot of confidence. And the next question I need to know is like, how does he like to eat? What is his eating habits? Because I know the member that asked me doesn't eat in the morning. They can't eat in the morning. They get nauseous.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's really cool and powerful to know. Her husband, where she likes to sit down and kind of have a big, she likes to just kind of like eat smaller meals frequently throughout the day. He likes to eat.
Mm-hmm.
He likes to sit down and eat and not snack. This is me versus Heather.
Mm-hmm.
I may sit down and I want to eat until I'm full. I love eating, and I want to eat until I'm really, really full. Whereas Heather will snack throughout her day, but Heather also ends eating fairly early. Mm. When you know those things, what's your goals and what's your eating lifestyle? Because the last thing you want to do is try to overlay habits that aren't inside their habits. That's a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Now, if I know, like, this dude loves to sit down and eat a lot, and he wants to lose 10 pounds, to me that screams that when we should be doing no snacks throughout the day, because once he starts eating, he's going to want to keep eating, and we need to lower his calorie intake. So somebody like that might be a candidate for something like intermittent fasting. Mm-hmm. Where we're going to shorten up the eating window, allow him to eat really big meals, 3 meals, 2 meals, whatever it is. And we can work with that way. Now, maybe a discussion comes up like, yeah, actually, he doesn't do well at all with being hungry. Mm-hmm. Okay, now we have to have another discussion. So now it's going to edge more towards the quality component, because we need to keep food coming in. We need to keep him snacking on high density foods that are low calorie, high nutrient density, low calorie. So munching on also for a lot of people like carrots and cucumbers and things that are crunchy, satisfy. And once you get really clean eating, the crunchiness aspect goes away. That chewing aspect actually creates this sense of feeling fulfillment. I'm actually eating, as opposed to like a lot of people go to shakes or drinks or juices and they don't get full and they're hungry right away because they're missing that aspect of it. Mm-hmm. So once you know that, you can kind of back into the nutrition knowing the individual first. So, the way to do this is understand the individual and then back the buckets into them. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that, thinking about it as goal first and then style second, right? And then so I think the third part of that might be execution, right? Once you understand the goal, once you understand. I didn't even lay out. I started laying out what I was. Yeah, and that's what I was going to kind of get to. Is like, because you are a nice balance. Sometime in the year you want your calories go down. Sometimes. So how do you actually do that so that you know? And maybe it's just like you've done this long enough. Like, I know when I'm eating less calories, and that's fine. But for folks, maybe for you, or for folks who aren't quite there yet, like, how do you suggest folks begin to track these things, begin to measure them, begin to know with more certainty that they're actually pursuing the strategy that is in line with both their goals and their style? Okay, so there's all these. Again, I would default to what they already enjoy doing. If you're a data freak and you love tracking, you love apps, and you love numbers and stuff like that, like, let's start tracking. We can start figuring this out. Record what you eat, how much of it, when you eat it, the quality, the quantity, and the macronutrient breakdown, all of it. That's not me. That's not me at all. I am not a data guy. I am a gut feeling guy. I am a big picture guy. I go with what feels right. Having said that, I've done this for a few years now and kind of understand it fairly well. So I'll give kind of a few different aspects of this. Here's what my day looks like. I get up at 5:30 in the morning. From there, I have 2 shaker bottles. One is a pre-workout it's just from Ascent Protein. It has 150 milligrams of caffeine in it. A little bit of electrolytes, but basically nothing other than kind of like a caffeine and flavor. From then, after that, I have some BCAAs mixed in with collagen protein, about 15 grams of collagen protein. And I drink that on the way to the gym.
I work out. I work out in the morning from about 6:30 to 8 o'clock, an hour and a half of working out. And then after that, I'll have a protein shake with some creatine in it. Just water-based protein shake, again, from Ascent Protein, 25 grams of protein, very low carbs, very low fat, water, and creatine in it. Mm-hmm. From there, the next meal I have is lunch, and that's usually somewhere around 10, 11, or 12. So that's why this weird kind of like intermittent fasting thing is. I'll do like 4 shaker bottles of water with a little bit of like the supplement stuff in between. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of the kick I'm on right now. I've also done this many summers without any supplements whatsoever at all, 0 supplements. But right now I'm kind of on a kick where I'm doing them. From there, I'll do lunch. And lunch is a salad. And when I say a salad, I mean it's a big salad. I mean it's like a huge salad. So it is like it is almost a full size cucumber. It is a full carrot. It is a full tomato. It is a full pepper. It is about half a bag to a full bag of spinach. Mm-hmm. And then I'll put usually about 40 to 50 grams of protein on that. Mm-hmm. Usually it's wild caught salmon or free range chicken. Is usually my go-to there. And then I put a homemade healthy salad dressing on it, and this is where I get my fats from. Mm-hmm. That Heather makes. Basically, healthy oils, some mustards, tons and tons of herbs. So we have an herb garden that she actually pulls it from. So herbs are actually, I think they're the number 2 most nutrient dense food group in the world. The number 1 being organ meat. Next is actually herbs, I believe. So we get tons of our herbs through our salad dressing, which is phenomenal. From there, I might do that as well. It's going to sound overload, but also even maybe sometimes do it with a side of broccoli. And sometimes the broccoli has grass-fed butter on it as well, and that's where I'll get some more additional fats from. Mm-hmm. I'll do all that. Sometimes I'll put some everything bagel seasoning on the salad, or so I'm getting more of the spices in there, and that's my big, massive lunch. From there, I won't eat again until 6 o'clock, and 6 o'clock is the exact same thing again. Mm-hmm. Is all those veggies and all the sides and all the same thing again. I'll probably switch up the protein source, but that's basically what it is. Maybe I'll put kale instead of spinach or something like that, but basically it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. That's my summer nutrition. I think each of those salads is getting me probably close to, probably 500-600 calories, somewhere in that neighborhood. With the sides, I'm probably getting another 100 calories or 2. With the protein and some of the BCAAs I'm getting throughout the day, I'm probably getting another 200, 300, 400. So I'm sort of in that lower range for sure, probably closer to that 1,800 calories a day. That's where I like to be. It's very, it's lower carb. I'm probably only, if you're talking about macronutrients, I'm probably only about, 80 grams of carbs a day. My fats come from really good sources, so there's no bacon. During the summer, my carb sources are all vegetable based. The point is I don't even really do any like sweet potatoes. I found that sweet potatoes actually make me gain weight really quickly. I think it's so easy to eat them, and they're so freaking delicious. And we have an air fryer. So you put them in the air fryer, and it's so dangerous. Yep. And I also stay away from it's easy for me to overdo fat as well. So I stay away from avocados and bacon as well. Mm-hmm. Now in the winter, I'll do more sweet potatoes. Yeah. I will. I'll also put a lot of times I'll put a fried egg on everything I do. So, and if I'm hungry, I'll have a fried egg for a snack as well. We just fry eggs and we leave them in the fridge. I don't like hard boiled eggs. I just do fried eggs, and they're delicious. In the winter, I'll lean in more into I'll lean more into sweet potatoes. I'll do a little bit more bacon. I'll do a little more avocado. And I might do if I'm being naughty, then there's a dessert, which is like a parfait type thing, Greek yogurt, some granola, and some fruit. And that's kind of the way I do my cycling throughout the years back and forth. And I do fluctuate. It's massive for me. I'm about 15 pounds lighter this summer than I was this winter. So even those tiny, I'm super sensitive to foods. Those little tiny deviations of a serving of sweet potatoes, a piece or two of bacon, and some avocado, maybe a parfait once or twice a week. That's the difference of 15 pounds for me. It's like that. It's a massive, massive difference. So the way I like to think about this is just, again, think about the buckets. Which ones do you want a little bit more of? Mm-hmm. And then the other part of this is like deficiencies and intolerances. I have gotten blood tested before. I have done gut microbiome stuff before. I have done sweat analysis before. So I have a fairly good understanding of the foods that work for me and the foods that don't.
What, possibly a strange question given that you just kind of laid all that out, but at various times in the year, how much are you thinking about nutrition? How much is it like part of your daily, like part of what you're paying attention to daily? Or is it that you've done this long enough, you've kind of disciplined yourself that it's on autopilot to a large degree?
I think about it a lot. I think it's one of the biggest factors that's going to lead me to where I want to be in my life. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's the old cliche. It's the fuel we're putting in our engine. If we want better output, you got to put better input. So I think about it a lot. Now, having said that, it's kind of on autopilot a little bit because I still get super excited for my salads every day. Like I know what I'm going to have every single day. I don't get the greatest amount of variance. Now, when I go out to eat, I try to eat things I don't normally eat. So that's kind of like, and I don't go to eat that often. Maybe once every 2 weeks is a restaurant meal. Mm-hmm. But the nutrition aspect is, I'm very, very, very cognizant of it. It stems back from when I first got into strength conditioning and personal training. One of the very first books I read, I can remember when my mom gave it to me. We were on vacation, and she's like, if you're going to get into this, you should read this book. It was In Defense of Food by Michael Pollan, who also wrote Omnivore's Dilemma. Yep. And it just so highlighted to me the importance of food. Like, we don't give enough credit to what food does to us. It's Socrates' thing, like, let food be thy medicine. It truly is it is a very, very powerful drug that, if you do it correctly, can keep you healthy and alive. If you do it poorly, can kill you. And when that was just so highlighted so clearly to me through that book, it was a paradigm shifting moment for me that I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't unsee, like, kids at a picnic table all drinking juice, and how much that horrifies me now. Because once you understand the chemistry of what's going on when they drink that juice, they're basically just putting spoonfuls of sugar in their mouth. Mm-hmm. You put spoonfuls of sugar in their mouth, and there's a chemical reaction in the body which causes sickness. It's like you can't unsee it once you know it. Mm-hmm. It's like smoking. Like, you walk around seeing people smoking, you're like, how in the world, knowing what we know, can people still be smoking? That's where I am with nutrition right now. It's like, I'm not saying I'm the most enlightened person in nutrition. I learn something new about nutrition every day. But even knowing the little bit that I know, it's hard not to realize the impact it has on every facet of our lives. If you want to be less stressed, less anxiety, if you want to sleep better, if you want better cognition, mental focus, memory, if you want to be in a better mood, if you want to lift more weight, run faster, if you want to look better. I mean, if there was a pill that did this thing, every single person on planet Earth would be gobbling it down. It would be insanity. Mm-hmm. There is that magic pill. It's just that it takes a small choice I should take it back. It's just that it takes thousands and thousands of choices every day. I mean, it's literally that. Every single day, you make thousands and thousands of choices. Actually, I'm going to take it back. The research I heard is that we make 220 nutritional choices a day.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea where that data comes from. I don't know how they do that, but that's the stat that's out there, is that we make between 200 and 200 nutritional choices a day. Now, if it was one really easy decision, like you wake up in the morning, you're like, today I'm going to eat clean, and you flip the switch, you press the buzzer, and today's a clean day.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a lot easier for all of us. Unfortunately, you got to make that decision 200 times over today. And tomorrow when you wake up, you make it over 200 times again tomorrow. Now, that's really overwhelming for a lot of people. So the thought process is just like when you go to set out to run, even better analogy, I was going to say run a marathon. I just recently listened to the podcast and I followed him on social, Colin O'Brady's trek across Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
It's called The Impossible First. He was the first person to unassisted go across the entire continent of Antarctica, pulling. So this is like he's going 30 miles a day, pulling a 300-pound sled.
Mm-hmm.
So the crazy part is he gets dropped in Antarctica. He goes to take his first step and he can't move the sled. He literally gets 5 steps, goes to his knees and starts crying. 5 steps into this. Calls his wife on the satellite phone and goes, honey, I can't do this. I'm 5 steps in. I can't move the sled. And she talked him through, because it's this big – the other cool part is he got dropped at the same point. No one's ever done this before. He got dropped at the same time, a mile away from a competitor. They took the same flight there, and they were a mile apart, racing for the same place.
Yeah.
And he sees him take off, and he's just scooting across the horizon. He's like, what's the point? Yeah. I can't pull the sled. I'm not going to win this race. This is going to be impossible. But it's this big, white, vast, open thing that you can see forever. And he can see the next waypoint, which is a half mile away. And the wife asked him, she's like, can you see the next marking? He's like, yeah. She's like, just get there. Call me when you get there. Just get there. So he busts his ass to get there. Calls her, and she's like, okay, can you see the next one? He's like, yep. He's like, just get there. To me, this is literally like people talk about just do one good day. Mm-hmm. No way, man. That's way too hard. If she was like, just get to the first destination point today, like no way is he going to make it there. She literally has to go the next 25 minutes. That's how long it takes to go a half hour for him. The next 25 minutes, just get there. And if we can start thinking about, can I do this? Can I eat clean? Can I be so good? Can I be proud of my effort? Can I stay dialed and focused for the next 20 minutes? And when I get to those next 20 minutes, that's my next decision point. And I'll do it again and I'll ask, but I'm not worried about that just then. This, by the way, is what Katrin does when she works out. Yeah. It's really daunting what she has to go through on a daily basis. And she goes, just do this one piece. And she lies to herself. She actually did it this past Saturday. She told me. She's like, I told myself that I only had to do this workout. And when I was done, I was going to be done. And I was not going to do the other workouts. She's like, I got done. And it was like, well, that wasn't so bad. Maybe I'll do the next one.
Yeah.
It's like we got to break these things up. It's all about the habit formation. Yes, part of it is like in terms of nutrition, you know, the part of it is knowing. There's absolutely an aspect of knowing that matters a lot. It matters to know that you going there and getting the gluten-free Snackwell cookies, it's important to know that is not going to help you with your goals. Unfortunately, we're all battling the marketing messages that the $1 trillion food industry is trying to figure out how to get you to take the next bite. They're literally trying to mess with your biochemistry to figure out how to get you to eat more and convince you that their products are good for you. So what you have to do is there's a certain level of knowledge. Once you get that certain level of knowledge, and I think people listening to this podcast kind of understand that, eat lean meats, healthy fats, fruits, and vegetables. Like that, dude, you're done. That's it. You know, eat to certain levels of quantity that aren't going to make you fat, that you're done. Like that's it. Then the next becomes a matter of willpower. Well, willpower sucks because it's an inexhaustible resource. You're going to burn through it. Yeah. So you got to set yourself up. To me, what you got to do, I mean, talk about like really simplified nutrition. It's set up your environment so you don't have the option of making those bad choices. I feel bad for the people that are trying to eat well that have shit in their house. That is a nightmare for me. If it was in my house, I struggle with it mightily. So to your point, like, do you think about nutrition a lot? Yes, all the time. I have a hard time making bad decisions in my house because it's not available.
Yeah.
When granola comes into the house, that's kind of as crazy as Ben gets. I know it's weird, like whatever. But the problem is when granola comes to my house, I eat it all.
Gone. Yeah.
And the story I tell them, like guys, I got to finish this right now. Otherwise, I'm going to end up eating the whole thing. It's like, and that's the story I play with myself. It's like, if I don't finish this right now, like I'm going to end up eating all of it. Yeah. That's the game I play with I can convince myself these weird things. Yeah. So if it's not in my house, it's super easy to stay dialed. I should say it's way more simple to stay dialed. Now, particularly in this environment, if you want to eat bad, you got to get in your car and you got to go somewhere. You got to order the food, or you got to come to your house. And the chances of you going through those necessary steps to say, like, I'm going to take action to be able to satisfy myself in 25 minutes, that's not the way the body works. We work on impulse. We work on now. So if it's not there now, out of sight, out of mind, you're going to do a whole lot better.
I love that. So we talked about starting with goals, understanding your own kind of personal eating, nutrition style, and then lots of stuff on strategies to how to make those two things work. Before we wrap up, anything else in this conversation about simplifying nutrition worth hitting on before we wrap up?
No, I mean, if I was to go, well, yeah, I guess maybe yes. I said no. Yeah. So people, like, you asked that question, which is a good one. Like, how much do people know about what buckets they want to lean into?
Yeah.
And I kind of gave a convoluted answer. I'm now looking back on it where I was like, I don't think they have trouble. And I was like, well, I do all three buckets. So maybe I don't even know. So maybe I don't know. If you don't know, here's the way I would think about this thing. I would think about it like in a pyramid, but the pyramid is not like, here's level 1, level 2, level 3. I would think of it as like shades of gray, right? Where it's kind of like one bleeds into the next. It's kind of like more like an hourglass type thing. Where the bottom one, to me, the most important thing and the thing I would recommend people start with, because if you don't know anything, like, where do you start? It's food quality. Quality, really good quality, is automatically going to have the most impact on the other buckets. Whereas if you start with quantity, you could still mess things up pretty bad. But if you eat super clean, as I already laid out, vegetables, lean meats, healthy fats, fruit, if you start with that, everything else is going to kind of like take shape. The next thing I would go to is, yes, it would be calories. The old school calorie. Like, that's the next thing I would go to, and make sure that because even if you're eating super perfect, everything is like you're slaughtering your own animals, that, you know, you're living in New Zealand in the pastures and there's no pollution, and you're growing through fertile soil and everything is perfect. But if you're eating 7,000 calories a day and you're not active, like, you're going to have issues. So the calories thing does matter. That's what I would take next. The next thing I would look at, getting more specific, would be the macronutrient breakdown. That's the next level, tiered up, but again, shades of gray, which would be relative to your performance goals. If you are an elite athlete, you're probably going to edge more towards the sides of carbohydrates, particularly if you're in a high intensity sport like most team sports or CrossFit. If you're in the ultra endurance world, maybe you bring that way down, you go into ketosis. We can geek out about that later on. And then the final piece I would sprinkle in on that is maybe after you get all those dialed in, but it's like kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, you get to that self-actualization, the top one, which is reserved for the very few. That's maybe where you kind of take a dive into like some biomarkers and some inflammatory things and some intolerances and what's my fasting glucose and A1C, and can I kind of regulate that throughout the day, and is my cortisol fluctuating throughout the day, and does food have an effect on that? And you kind of geek things out a little bit. But to me, really, if you stay with that quality aspect and then layer in some sort of like just big bucket, don't eat too much, don't eat too little, that's a great place to kind of like live in this simplified nutrition world.
Awesome. I think that is a great place to wrap up this conversation. Thank you so much to everybody for listening, for sending us notes, for leaving ratings and reviews, and we will be back next week for another episode of Chasing Excellence. You can get every episode of Chasing Excellence wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Until next time, thank you for listening.